This is the Aftermarket Radio Network. Hey everybody, Carm Capriato, Remarkable Results Radio, and another Town Hall Academy. Now, you know that is the single subject forum we've been doing for maybe 410 kind of weeks. It was so much fun doing this. I can't wait to introduce you to my outstanding panel. But first, thank you so much to all of our great and loyal supporters of Remarkable Results, the Town Hall Academy, our show For the Record, and the Aftermarket Radio Network. We have grown so much over the 9.5 years we've been podcasting, as I call myself the pioneer of automotive aftermarket podcasts. Yeah, there's a lot of other ones, but we're the stalwart. We keep it going. We keep the greatest topics and the greatest subjects you'll ever possibly need to grow a better life and a better business. Hey, thanks to our sponsors for the Town Hall Academy. Did you know that NAPA Tracks is on-site training plus 6 days a week support? Well, it all starts when a local representative meets with you to learn about your business and how you can run it. Talk to my great friends at NAPA Tracks on the web at NAPATRACS.com. And my friend Chris Cotton is AutoFix Auto Shop Coaching, and Chris will help you shift your gears and redefine success. Who is your business coach? Imagine your business not just meeting, but exceeding every goal. AutoshopCoaching.com. And are you ready to optimize training with today's class? We'll roll out a training plan for your automotive shop in just 5 minutes daily. Boost knowledge, retention, and improve team performance. Start seeing results today. Join your peers at todaysclass.com. Okay, meet my panel. Off the charts. I'm just going to sit in the back, catch a snooze while these guys go at it.
Because you're that bored.
Our subject today, if you're watching this, you've seen the episode title. We're going to talk about neuromarketing / neuroscience. Dr. David Weiman's with us. He's the president of Weiman Consulting, a leadership consulting firm in Philadelphia, PA. Hello, Dr. David.
Hello there. Great to be with you.
Thank you, sir. 9, 10, 11 podcasts, somewhere in that area that you've been on with us to spread your wisdom. Thank you, as always. Matt Fanslow's here, technology specialist, shop manager, Riverside Automotive, Red Wing, Minnesota, and the Matt Fanslow Diagnosing the Aftermarket podcast from A to Z in the Aftermarket Radio Network. Hello, Matt.
Hola.
Scott Manna's biographer.
Sure, yes, sir.
Are you writing the biography?
Oh, it's all up here. If you need any facts about Mr. Manna, I would be happy to rattle some off.
And someday he just may come on and we'll do an episode about Scott. So neuroscience, neuromarketing. You know, Matt, he's always in the clouds as a deep thinker, and he calls me up and he says, Carm, this is hot. We got to do it. So if Matt thinks it's hot, I always say yes. God, I'm weak. Can't believe that.
Yeah, Matt's in the clouds like Icarus. My wings are melting and crash and burn.
Neuromarketing. It's a field that uses neuroscience to understand how people's brains respond to marketing stimuli. Now, I'm not that smart. I read that definition off of Google, so I just want you to know that, okay? Because these two guys are probably 10 times smarter. But neuromarketing, as I've done my own personal research, and I believe you're here to listen to this episode, is it helps build customer relationships, improves customer care, optimizes revenues and profits for your business, and predicts how a product, service, or marketing campaign will perform. I think they have to put electrodes on people's heads and they throw stimuli at them and we see what part of the brain fires up and we say, I think we got something there. Right, Matt?
At least partly. You're probably wondering how I got here, right? Not just on this panel, because everybody knows that's just a lack of options. But the reason I got to the subject, I guess I'm not trying to put over my podcast, but if you listen to a lot of the episodes, I struggle with correlations. Like I see how things are tied together. Like there's very, very few things that are just outright not related. I have a few episodes with Margaret Light, who is a counselor or a therapist, and we're talking about relationship stuff and communication. So Tracy did a class recently on communication along with Sarah Fraser, and there's a name that comes up, Gottman's. And early on, when Margaret was on my podcast, she talked about some scientists that were studying people and how they respond in relationships. And I, from memory, remember reading about some scientists that were monitoring heart rate, skin temperature, skin moisture, eyes, like pupil size, or how your eye movement is. That's who they are. That's what they did. You keep diving into this and you start adding in game theory and just a little bit of marketing. And the next thing you know, you find out that there's this thing called neuromarketing. And the premise is people lie. I mean, that's straight out of House MD, the television show, everybody lies. And that's the issue is if I have a conventional study, I have my product groups or test groups, and I ask them, what do you think about this ad? What do you think about this ad? How does this box make you feel? How does this cereal box make you feel? If you're in a store, which one would you be more apt to buy? People lie because we're riddled with biases, which I'm sure the doctor will be more than happy to elaborate on, but we're riddled with biases. And just the test themselves, just the situation, the environment of asking somebody what they think changes the answers for multiple reasons. So now the way around that is let's start monitoring things that you're not really in control of, not as much as you think you are. So let's monitor your brain activity. Let's watch the blood flow in your brain. Let's watch the electrical activity. Let's watch your heart rate. Let's watch how your eyes track. That doesn't lie.
So in the lobby of every automotive shop, we have this device that does that, right?
Yes, we need thermal imagers aimed at everybody. Probably like a harness ready to go.
Wouldn't that be the coolest? There's this number up on the wall somewhere, and the person walks into this zone, and we're just making them feel comfortable, building know, like, and trust. And the number goes from 80 to 90 to 100. We know we're getting through.
I think you just find out, and I'm not trying to say that there is some sell button in everybody's, or buy button really more accurately. I'm not saying that everybody has this buy button buried in their brain. And if we can hit it, we're going to just buy completely involuntarily, just shoveling money our way. But I think there's a lot of little lessons to learn about this strategy. And at the shop level, we're probably not going to employ a whole lot of this. But a lot of the stuff we can learn from it translates directly into what we do and what we're trying to do.
So, Dr. David, does he have a premise here?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, my takeaway from what Matt's talking about is, and the evidence is, that people don't know themselves very well. And so they often say the first thing that comes to their mind, or they give an impression that consciously they believe, but at another level, there's other things going on. So to his point, people thought it was a great idea to show these really horrible images of what would happen to you, the consequences of smoking. And they put these up in stores where people buy cigarettes, and there are these horrible labels on packaging. And that was supposed to deter people from buying cigarettes. But that's not actually what happens. And in some cases, people bought more. And when they were asked whether or not, to Matt's point, they said, is this a deterrent? Does this bother you? They'd say yes. But while they were under a scan for a MRI or fMRI, the parts of the brain that are associated with pleasure were lighting up. So what explains this? What explains it is that there's this elegant kind of interaction between the mind, which has a conscious piece and unconscious pieces, obviously, and what's actually happening in the brain. And so to Matt's point, when you ask people, it's not that they're consciously lying, it's just that it's a lie. Like the first thing that they often say isn't true. And so what's the explanation? Well, the pleasure centers are lit up in the brain for smokers when they see anything associated with cigarettes. And so this attempt to show these like horrible images, even though they would consciously say, well, that was very disturbing. Did you buy the cigarettes? Oh yeah, I bought 5 packs. Why? Because they've associated these two things together. And so we are kind of mysteries to ourselves. And that's why what somebody says is the reason for something, often isn't. There was this famous taste test of Pepsi and Coke that Malcolm Gladwell wrote about. And in a sip test, where you just take a sip, people preferred Pepsi over Coke. And generally, people would prefer a soda that's slightly sweeter, and Pepsi is slightly sweeter than Coke. So he was trying to answer the question like, well, why is Coke a bigger brand than Pepsi? Why do more people drink it? And in the book, his answer was, well, because most people drink a lot of this stuff, and that a sweeter drink is a little cloying and you get sick of it sooner. But when they did studies of the type that Matt was describing, if they did a blind taste test like a sip test, people would prefer Pepsi over Coke. When they told them which one was which, they preferred Coke over Pepsi. Why? Because they had all of these associations, these brand associations that were really, really, really strong. So yeah, I'm in violent agreement with Matt. There is this kind of interaction going on, and studying the brain and studying the mind are two different things, but there's a lot of data there. a lot of data to be had.
Yeah.
Are you upset that I agree with Matt? Because I could take it.
No, I love the fact that you agree with Matt because he'll call me after we're done with the show and says, see?
Told you.
That shrink is the smartest guy.
Yeah, you got to have him on more.
And we have.
I like that guy.
Please listen to Dr. David's episode with Murray Voth on regrets. You are going to love it because it's already out. But I'm fascinated with this because I am no expert, but I can't tell you. How does the Coke and Pepsi kind of idea happen to what shop that we maybe go to? I don't know. Maybe there's something there.
Well, you're breeding a brand or at least cultivating a brand. And the idea, I think, with Coca-Cola is when he said that people preferred it in the MRI, Coke over Pepsi, it wasn't by a slim margin. It was overwhelming.
Yeah, it was a big difference.
So it just tells you that Coke over the years and years and years has cultivated a certain brand, associated feeling with that brand that carries over, taste, everything.
There are implications to another point that Matt made. You don't have to be an expert in neuromarketing to make use of the data from it. So the first thing that I read about this, and Matt may have read more than it sounds like that, is 2008, Martin Lindstrom's wonderful book, Biology, Buyology, Truth and Lies About Why We Buy, where he discovered through a massive study that involved MRIs and fMRIs what was really going on in the brain, even when people said something different than what that would indicate. He also talked about in that book the phenomenon known as mirror neurons. And this was discovered in a lab, an Italian lab, where a researcher walked in to disconnect, I think, some monkeys from a machine that was tracking what was going on in their brains. And he was holding an ice cream cone. And when he brought the ice cream cone up to his mouth, the machines indicated that there was activity in the brains of the monkeys as if they were motorically, if they were lifting their hand up like this, but they were sitting still. So why would there be activity in the brain associated with the motor area as if they were doing that, if they weren't? And it was because the brain has a sort of empathy thing going on. When it sees that, it starts reacting in the same pathway as if they were doing it themselves, even though they weren't moving. This explains a lot of things, but if I was a marketer, I would want to show people smiling in my shop because other people will see that. Even when people see the word smile, they start smiling, right?
David, you're right. I seem to be more in favor of the information coming to me when the individual is smiling and shaking their head. This is something that you want, Carm. This is a perfect option for you, isn't it? And to the point of the ice cream coming up to the lips, it's almost like, and I'm not saying this is deceptive at all, but when I think about so many times that I've said yes over a sale, I felt really good about not only the reason to buy, but the person who was selling it to me. Powerful stuff.
Yeah, it goes into subtle stuff. I think I had sent you an article, or at least, I don't know, some information, where Google had spent quite a bit of money looking at shades of blue. And they found that out of 41 shades, that this one, more than the others, slight hint of purple, performed far, far better than the other shades of blue. And when they put that into use, the profit went up $200 million. By changing the color of the links. That's how subtle things are that affect us. Now, there's not a buy button in your brain, but there's things that you're not as in control of yourself as you think you are. And kind of back to that bias stuff where, our idea of ourselves is kind of our own little social construct. We come up with an idea of who we are and who we want to be, but you start behaving that way, it doesn't necessarily line up with what's really going on underneath that mask, if you will. And I think a classic example, you might be able to find it on YouTube. I don't think this was played in the United States, but Cheetos had made a commercial that they ran in front of the conventional test panels, and multiple different ones. It's set in a laundromat, and you have the main character, the protagonist, holding the bag of Cheetos, eating. And you have the antagonist, some lady who is not very nice, and she's waiting for her clothes to dry, and they have an exchange, and the antagonist leaves to go to the restroom or go for a walk while waiting. Protagonist looking at her fingers full of the Cheeto dust, looks at the dryer that has the antagonist's clothes in it, opens it, throws in a few Cheetos, shuts the door, restarts the dryer, and then leaves. Well, when they ran this past the panels, they were appalled. That's terrible. Why would anybody want to do that? Why would you want to show this commercial to people? Now they would get this idea, and it's wrong. It's morally wrong, right? And they may not even say that. They may just say, I don't like this. But when they do the EEGs, when they do the skin temperatures, or they watch the muscles in their face for the smiling muscles, or the monitoring, the neuroscience of it, it proved to be quite popular. So they ran the ad anyways. And it was wildly popular. Sales go up. And there's instance after instance after instance of this. Some of it found in an MRI, some of it found with an EEG, but it just keeps leading into this marketing world is really, really interesting. The human brain is a fascinating machine.
Are the commercials we're watching today all over the place tested like this?
I think a growing number is, especially as the dollar amounts drop on certain studies, and then you see the realization of the effects is going to cause more people to do it and more people to do it. I think absolutely.
Let's face it, your shop management system is the single most important tool in your shop, period. NAPA Tracks was built from the ground up to make your business more profitable and efficient. We provide an extensive set of tools to increase and track profitability in real time. NAPA Tracks offers the industry's best post-sale support, hands down, and we train your people on site. Yep, on site. And we offer remote refresher training 10 times a week, and customer support is open 6 days a week. Give us a call, visit the website, or join our Facebook community today to learn more. We'll prove to you that Trax is the single best shop management system in the business. NAPA Tracks is always customized and tailored for you, whether you're a one-man shop or a large multi-bay or multi-location company. After all, it's your shop, so it's your choice. Visit us on the web at NAPATRACS, that's NAPATRACS.com. In the world of auto repair, every shop has its unique rhythm and challenges. Now at AutoFix Auto Shop Coaching, they understand that one size does not fit all. That's why we offer personalized business coaching, tailoring our advice to meet your shop's specific needs. Transform your operations with strategies and tools to streamline your workflow, reduce waste, and skyrocket productivity. And when it comes to the numbers, we've got you covered. Our financial management guidance helps you master your finances from cash flow to profit margins, ensuring your revenue grows stronger every day. AutoFix Auto Shop Coaching, empowering your shop to achieve more. Ready to shift your gears toward success? Visit us at autoshopcoaching.com. Hey, Carm here, suggesting you discover a smarter way to train your entire automotive team. Experience powerful, bite-sized training sessions accessible from any device in just 5 minutes daily. It's perfect for technicians, advisors, and managers alike. Today's class prepares your shop for sustained success by reinforcing crucial knowledge. Plus, add a competitive edge with our leaderboard to make learning fun and rewarding for everyone. For effective training that delivers, turn to todaysclass.com. I haven't seen more stupid commercials in my whole life that don't make sense from beginning to end. And I said, I can't wait to watch that again because I must have missed something,
Some of it is just how the brain works. So, for example, rhymes are very easy to remember. And so rhyming something tends to stick in the mind longer. And I was interviewing someone who was years retired, and we were talking about rhymes, and he remembered as a little kid driving down the highway, and there were these Burma shave signs that would have a few words on each sign, and it was to engage you. And he remembered the entire thing. I said, how long has it been since you saw that or thought about it? He said, I haven't thought about it since I was a little kid. That's the last time that I saw it. That's where the mind and the brain are working in concert. Again, to Matt's point, there's so much going on up in our heads that at any given time, that trying to get a message straight out of a person about what they like or don't like or what their preferences are is tough. And truly, it's where the idea of actions speak louder than words really matters. It's what people do that matters, not what they say they're going to do, because those two often aren't well synced up. To the question of, is this being done? Brilliant copywriters, and I was a copywriter in another lifetime, and I was also the marketing director for all of the Wendy's restaurants in South Jersey. This is about 9 franchises, but there was so much thought going into what people would eventually see and how a jingle worked and how people responded to it. But to Matt's point, asking them what they think and seeing what they do are 2 different things. There's a neuromarketing agent. It's an association, the Neuromarketing Science and Business Association. When I went to their website, I think there were 36 countries where there were companies doing neuromarketing using some of the terms that have been used already. And in an article that I was reading in the Journal of Consumer Psychology, it said using an EEG-based engagement metric. This was a global sports brand who was working with one of the larger neuromarketing vendors to optimize a video ad, was sponsoring an international event. Using an EEG-based engagement metric, the vendor identified the most impactful scenes, allowing the 30-second ad to be cut in half. The streamlined ad was more cost-effective to air and was credited with a significant lift in purchase intentions, brand perceptions, and sales. So that's where the rubber meets the road. It's what people do. But the brand impression is really interesting. And so I was having an argument with one of my brothers about something my parents had, I felt like a value my parents had inculcated in us as kids growing up, 5 brothers. And this one brother said, "Oh, that's crazy. That's nonsense. I'm tired of people saying what happened to them in childhood impacts who they are as adults." Now, I'm a psychologist and he's telling me this. I said, "Okay, you feel like nothing that happened then impacts you now?" He said, "No." I said, "Let's go to your refrigerator and open it up. Because I guarantee you, I'll tell you now without even seeing it, you have this brand of grape jelly, you have this brand of mustard, you have this brand of mayonnaise." And he didn't want to open it up, but that was all. I said, "Those are all the brands you grew up with. So really, it makes no difference at all." Come on. I mean, of course, there's a comfort to it. And I also think, and I don't know what Matt thinks about this, but I think that our brain is very efficient, right? So it likes these sort of well-worn pathways. And so if we're used to going to a certain branded service station, for example, or gas station, that brand attraction just lives there and it makes things easier. My office used to be at the corner where there were 2 different gas stations. They weren't service stations. They were gas stations with convenience stores in them. One had a lower gas price than the other, but they were both always busy. Why is that? I mean, if you were purely logical, you would always buy gas where it was less expensive. But one was a very strong brand and people were used to going there. So if you asked them why they went there, they would probably say, "Oh, the coffee's better." They'd make something up, like Matt was saying. They would, "Oh, the coffee's better," or "It's more convenient," or "It's on that side of the street." And then I turn right and I go home. Purely logically, why would you spend more for gasoline every time you went to get it? That place, by the way, had the same colors as your sponsor, NAPA. It was a blue and yellow branded company, Sunoco.
I think I know who that is.
Guess what? They're still there and the other place closed. It's all that idea of we have these attachments to the brand that go beyond what we're consciously able to describe. But like the example I gave you of the brother of mine who insisted that this meant nothing, but he had all the same brands that we grew up with or are key. So again, I'm sort of interested in if Matt has a take on that or not.
I'm really glad you brought it up because it reminds me part of the, kind of thinking about how to present all this stuff. And my brain's kind of exploding with different things. But the primarily is, I don't want to pretend to know, but I think for the sake of discussion, you can kind of divide you up into kind of 3 areas. And Dr. Weiman may add to that or challenge that, and I welcome it. He's probably right and I'm wrong. But 1, the reason you are the way you are is partly instinct, partly, and maybe even predominantly what you grew up in, the environment, environmental factors, who you grew up around, where you grew up, stuff like that. And then I think a little bit just how you're designed, if that makes sense, like how you ended up being produced, if that makes sense. My reference to that would be like fight, flight, freeze, fawn. And there's one more. What all is entailed in that? Is that environment, or are you wired just a little bit differently than somebody else in the same environment and all that? The instinct portion to me is fascinating with this neuromarketing because it seems to play on that pretty hard, where maybe you could argue part of your instincts is a little bit of tribalism or a lot bit where you want to be a part of something.
Sure.
Where I would reference that to is maybe like Apple versus Android, iOS versus Android. If you were to study Apple users, and I'm not taking a dig at them, but if you would study them in an MRI, if you show them the iOS type of functionality, the phones, the interfaces and all that, they're happy. You show them the Android stuff and they're really offended. You know what I mean? Like, disgust is probably a strong word, but it's borderline disgust. It's something I told her about, but that I did mean as I was taking a shot. No, I'm just kidding.
That doesn't mean it's not true.
It's true.
That doesn't make it wrong that it was a shot.
The Android users are different. They're a little more, I don't know, wishy-washy isn't the right word, but they just could care less. They're not impressed with the iOS, and they're not just really into their Android interface either. They're not that passionate. But the iOS users are very, very passionate, and they're very, very together. It's something they kind of even relate to one another with. It's almost like smokers, right? People that smoke. A lot of it is the act, and not just the act of lifting it up to your mouth and inhaling and all that. And of course, the nicotine. But there's a certain camaraderie where 100%. They are in some place they don't know anybody, but they can walk outside and either bum a smoke or give somebody that needs a smoke a cigarette, and they have something to bond over. That's a powerful, powerful drive amongst many others. I don't even know how many there are. There's a great many of these type of things, but the neuromarketing can play on those types of biases or instincts, stuff like that, in a way that's never been accessible before. And not that neuromarketing is so new. It's been around for quite a few years, over a decade. But to see it really starting to come into its own and really start to get employed, and it sometimes fell upon accidentally. Part of it's a little scary, but it's super interesting. And again, as a shop owner or a manager in charge of advertising, and not just advertising like putting up a logo and putting out whatever radio ads and internet banners, and do I give Facebook money or do I give Google money? The front counter, the waiting area, all these things add up. You're marketing your shop. How do I create a group of people that are as passionate about my shop as they are about their iPhone?
Man, I got to stop you for a moment because I was talking to Marianne Croce about this entire episode, and we've been doing some episodes together. And she said, Carm, we market to ourselves and not who we want as a customer. And I think that was part of what your point has been. And then I started to think about, I was on this cook about a bakery and the smells inside of a bakery. If I'm the baker and I own this bakery, I'm not a cake person, but I got to make them because my customers want them. You know, I'm a cupcake person. Of course, there's a lot of cupcakes here. And so everything that we do, and if you think about the smells and the aromas and the looks and everything that we do to display our products that make them sellable, I've been on this kick lately. You know, in the industry, we talk a lot about medical and what we need to do to be certified in our industry. But I've been really jumping on this whole bakery thing and how we can bring it down to our counters, the environment that we bring our consumer in, just not to see us always on the web and communicate on the phone, but when they come inside, they've got to see something that they feel they belong to.
100%. And people can still do that in alignment with their own personalities and their own style. So if you have somebody who likes cracking jokes, let that person crack jokes, right? That makes people happy. I'm good with that. If you have somebody who is they geek out on different things related to a certain kind of engine or a certain kind of car, let them do that too. But I think that what somebody experiences when they walk in, and I think that was what you're both talking about, really matters. What's really interesting, and Carm, we may have talked about this on a prior show, is asking people who referred a customer to you what they said to that person to get them in the door. I learned a lot by doing that in my own practice because I thought, to your point, I knew how to market to my prospect. When I asked my best referral source what she told people, it was a lot simpler than what I was saying. She said, this guy's a problem solver. I was like, Whoa.
Oh my God.
Throw the degrees out. Like, it doesn't matter. None of that matters. And I think that Harry Beckwith in his book, Selling the Invisible, made the point.
Oh, I love that book.
That people, it's comfort that matters when you're buying from a service provider. I don't know anything about a mechanic's shop. I don't know what they do once I've dropped the car off, but I know how I feel when I walk in. And one of the first places I ever went, it looked like a surgery, like an operating theater. It was spotlessly clean and nobody was yelling and everything was very precise. And I'm like, well, they must know what they're doing. I have no idea if they knew what they were. They happened to be outstanding. And on another episode, we talked about this shop. It was owned by a former race car driver, but everything was put away. There was nothing laying around. You couldn't trip or fall on anything. So aside from safety, it also looked buttoned up. But this idea of creating a place that people want to be really matters. And creating that tribe is important because they don't know, other than driving away and knowing that the car was fixed, they have no idea what the mechanic did to get it that way. So the trust factor is really high. And you might also think about, we know who we want to attract, but who do we not want to attract? Who don't want we want? Like, what's the bad avatar look like? Matt's shaking his head, so I'm wondering what you think about that, because we don't want that person in. We want the right customer to come in, and we don't want the wrong customer to come in. What's your own thought about that?
It's spot on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, it's so spot on because we see that with coupons. You know, people put out this big coupon for free oil change or free tire rotate with an oil change or free oil change or buy the oil and the rest is free. And you get all kinds of people. And some people argue for it, against it, whatever. But what you do know is you get a lot of people that you don't want as long-term customers because they're not there because you're a problem solver. They're there because you saved them a lot of money, but probably won't continue to save them money, or at least not in the way that they want you to save them a lot of money. Otherwise, you spend a lot of time educating, which we need to do anyways, about long-term savings. But having that initial rush.
Exactly. If the pleasure center pops up, if they get a dopamine hit because they got something for free, and then you don't keep giving them that free thing, no dopamine hit, no customer, bye-bye. So
that's why we keep a dart gun behind the counter with dopamine.
So I love this whole dopamine idea. We have to figure out as CEOs of our business, what's the dopamine fix we want to have that keeps them coming back at the highest level of client.
And it's going to take a lot of effort and time and creativity to find it. Because when he was telling the story about what this woman was telling, a referral, why to go here? Well, he's a problem solver. That took me way off guard. The ones I've heard is, I feel safe. Part of it is physically, like the parking lot is well lit. The parking lot is paved, not gravel or dirt. It's inside. It's clean. And the real safe place is at the front counter when I'm interacting with customer service rep, the owner, manager, service advisor. Like, I feel safe in expressing my concerns, my worries, stuff like that I'm not going to get met with. Usually it's criticism, right? Condescension. That's huge. I don't recall ever hearing anyone talk about that. Like, create a safe place for your clients. Well, you start thinking about safe. It's like, well, I think so-and-so is packing. They're not thinking in terms of, I'm dropping the vehicle off. The parking lot's dark. They're not thinking of, come inside and the place is welcoming and clean. And especially if they have kids, like, okay, I'm okay letting my kids run around here. And then that safe place of being able to express themselves without fear of retribution or getting talked down to, ignored.
100%. And that's where training comes into it, because if my first experience is that the person who wrote up the problem was super understanding, and I think, oh, this place is great, like they just got it. And the next time I come in, somebody's grumpy and acting like I'm imposing on them by even standing in their shop, I might think, wait, where's the other person? Like, what happened to that other experience? So a lot of times these first impressions, and I think Matt is also bringing something up that's really important. These basic things, that's processed in an old part of the brain. Things around safety, that's old brain stuff. That's not like cognitive new stuff, because we're making a lot of judgments that we don't even realize. They had done a study a long time ago, and they've been replicated in different ways. I'm not a big fan of studies that are done in universities because students are paid to do them and they're kind of set up and artificial. But they had them kind of rate a professor who they saw just like a videotape of the person walking into the room. And it was a few seconds long, and they gave impressions just from that. And then they watched longer and longer videos of the person. And what they found is like the first impression tended to be the same impression they had when they watched more and more of this. To Matt's point, when you drive by a place that looks scary, that's bypassing all this stuff. It's going right back to the part of the brain that's like, I got to survive this. Maybe I'm not going in there. And what they see and what they hear, that's all going on at the same time. Somebody told me a while ago, and I think we discussed it on a prior podcast, that they drove by the same shop and there were 3 bays, but there was the same car or the same truck in one of the bays for weeks. And he was like, what the hell are they doing in there? Like, why is this truck? And the person was mechanically inclined. He's like, I bet I know like why it's been in there that long. But do you think they had a positive impression of this? No, they did not. Like just seeing it every day. They're like, they can't figure this out. Like, what could it be? Is it stuck? Like, is the lift not going to come down?
That's a great point to everyone who's listening. In the face of the customer, facing to the road, if you've got a vehicle that's waiting on parts or even in a restoration mat that you know it's going to be there for a couple of months, please don't put that in the face of the customer. That's brilliant.
I mean, they might as well put spotlights on it and said, we can't figure this out. But because that's
the owner's car.
That's a great point. Into the void, people tend to project their worst fears, not their best ideas. And so it all feeds into it.
Oh my God. I've heard coaches talk about going into a shop to be evaluated because the owner of the shop is considering bringing on a coach. And there's this vehicle in there. He was there for a couple of days and says, why is that vehicle still there? Oh, that's the owner's car. Does it need work? No, he's just parked it there. And he goes, I know exactly how to improve the volume of your place. Put the car outside. Free up the lift.
I hated that stupid show with a passion. The Repair Shop Rescue. I hate that show. Somebody needs to do a real good one. I have any ideas? Anyways, they consistently, that was a thing. They would go in there and one bay would be sacked. That's the owner's vehicle. That's his toy. He or she's going to work on it or fix it all up or, yeah, it runs. They just never take it out.
A point Matt made earlier that made me think of something else, if it's okay to like circle back to that. The loyalty of the Apple customer is really interesting. So with one of the early iterations of the iPhone, I think it was the 4, if you held the phone, it wouldn't work. There was something about the hand that was interfering with the signal going out. Now, that is the purpose of the phone, is to make a call, at least that back in those days. They had to send people a rubber bumper that you would attach around the phone so that it would create some space. This is my recollection of this, between your hand and the sides of the phone so that it could execute a call. The very next iteration of that phone, and when Matt was talking about this, it made me think of it immediately. You would think that nobody would show up for another one of these things. There were lines around the blocks of to get the next. It was like the 4S. Understanding what creates that kind of loyalty, that clique, that tribe, that club really matters. And I think it's difficult to do in a service business, but I drive my car every day. And so if we can unlock a little bit about what reminds me of what I liked about where I take my car now, there's still the little sticker that tells me when to bring it back in for the next oil change. But there's probably more leverage that shop owners have to create more touch points or more ways of the person feeling that even when they're not there. I'm not sure what that is. That's your expertise, not mine. But
David brings up such a great point. Can I be like Apple? Can my shop be like Apple? I'm writing an article for NAPA Insights Q1 of 2025, and I'm calling it The Zone of Opportunity. And you have all just brought up many of the things that I'm writing in that article. And instead of an opportunity zone that we've always known, say, in the community, business wants to come into an opportunity zone and get tax breaks and stuff. My thought was the zone of opportunity, and that would be the front of the shop. It would be the greetings. It would be all the ambiance and all the transparency that exists and all those different zones through the customer touch process that we have opportunities to make them right, to make them ours. This is so apropos to this article I'm writing.
I would say the answer is yes. I don't want to pretend that my shop is that way yet. But, we're talking about a lot of stuff with the brain, okay? And I've talked about instinct and environmental stuff. And there's another thing you hear about in neuromarketing called, they're dividing the brain. I don't know how accurate it is, but at least for discussion's sake, you have the logical brain and then you have the emotional brain. The people lined up for hours to get the 4S after the 4 was a piece of junk weren't using their logical brain. And I'm not calling them idiots, and it's nothing like that. There's an emotional attachment. How do we create an emotional attachment to the shop and or the people in our businesses? That's what it's all about. Is it the sight? Is it the smell? It's combinations of so many things. Yeah. But it's how do we make our clients feel, and can we reproduce it, and can we one up it once in a while? It's nearly impossible to one up it every visit. But every once in a while, can we keep exceeding that? And it's hard for me not to reference the show The Bear, when Richie is at I forget the name of the restaurant, but where he's there getting trained and he figures out about taking care of the clients. And the one scenario was they had come to they had come to Chicago. Came to Chicago. They had not had pizza yet and they had to leave the next day. And they were kind of regretting that they did not get a chance to try Chicago pizza. And one of the employees overheard this, went in the back, said something. They sent somebody to go get pizza, gave it to the chef, and he did his thing to it a little bit, upscaled it, brought it to that table, no charge. Imagine what those people were thinking. Not just watching a show, but just imagine yourself in that same situation. I'm at this high-end restaurant. It's not going to be cheap. I'm glad I came here, but gosh darn it, Chicago pizza. I'm in Chicago and I didn't get a chance. And they made it happen. Maybe the situation arises where we do get to run out and get somebody a pizza, but how can we create something similar by just listening, reacting, or acting is probably a better word, and creating that same sort of wow. They care more about me than just my car and my wallet. How do we create that feeling? How do we give them that comfort, I guess, overwhelming comfort and awe and wow? Like, wow.
And you can depend on something if you do that. Yeah. They will tell everyone they know.
Yes.
And storytelling in all cultures is forget the neuromarketing piece. Storytelling is an amazing way to convey things. And on social media, people storytell. They make a video about something. So if you are able to create that experience that Matt talked about, please be guaranteed you will not pay a penny for the marketing of that, because that person will tell everyone they know that special thing happened. Whether this did happen to me. My car was smashed from behind and I thought I was going to die when I saw this minivan coming towards me on the downside of a bridge, and it was speeding towards me and I had nowhere to go. There was a concrete abutment on the left and there were cars on the other lane, so I was stuck. And I saw this thing coming towards me. At the last minute, traffic moved. They must have realized I was there, and they smashed the back right side of my car. And I didn't die. I'm still here. But it was a very upsetting experience. I took it to a local repair shop, and I told them what happened. And they did what Matt's talking about. They found that I had already had a flat tire. So the original tire was in the trunk, and there was a donut on the replacing it. They repaired the tire, even though that wasn't part of what the repair was. And so when I got the car back, I saw the tire was now like it was fixed. They said, after everything you've been through, we didn't want you to have one more thing to do. So we repaired that tire and we put it back on. And I was like, I told everyone I knew that. Like, they didn't have to do that. That wasn't on the sheet of stuff. And they said, it's no charge. Do you know how many people I've referred to that place since then? Like everyone I know, because they did that extra. They saw it in the trunk. They had to take it out because of where the car was damaged. But I think it was about $12,000 to do the repairs to the back right side of that car. And they did that. So I agree completely with what Matt just outlined there. That way of making an impression, because most people don't bring their car in for service because nothing's wrong and they're totally happy. And the impressions that are made in the brain when we are emotional are different than when we're not.
Yeah, he beat me to it. I was just going to play
everything else. We did one, it's 11-1 here. But
that is exactly something I wanted to bring up, because our strongest memories are attached usually to emotion, some sort of emotion, usually really, really good or really, really bad, really, really scared, fearful, something like that. So, Carm, the first time you saw, laid eyes on Matt and the first time you laid eyes on Tracy. You probably remember that vividly. But do you remember running into, Bob Hype at, Apex a year ago and he was just walking up the aisle and you weren't really surprised to see him? What was he wearing? You probably can't really remember. But you probably remember everything about seeing Matt, everything about seeing Tracy, those first times. And there was the anticipation and all that excitement. And then it's probably etched into your brain, untouchable until potentially something horrible happens with like dementia and Alzheimer's. And the only reason I bring that up is another fascinating thing about the brain that Dr. Weiman kind of brought up earlier is with rhymes is music. And music seems untouchable by these things. It's amazing. It's extraordinary. And I think there's something to that with how, not that we're going to start playing music for people and they walk in, although that'd be kind of cool, right? Red carpet comes out and somebody just starts banging out a riff, that associating, hopefully very good, positive memories etches that into their brains. And they will fall back on that. Like he said, advertise for you. If there's any car issue, they're not Googling car repair near me. They're Googling the shop's name or you're already saved into the contacts.
Oh my God, I just had this wild thought, Matt. Thank you for this. Here it is. I'm a shop. I'm on the phone with you. You're getting ready to come in and drop off your car. But the day before, or the week before, I say, what's your favorite song? And when that person comes in, they go to Spotify, bam, they hit it, and it's playing in the background. I know I'm a little crazy. I know that.
It'd be almost like a WWE wrestler entrance.
Think about it.
You could have the smoke machine.
I remember what we said. Bam, and the song comes on. It says, you talk about an emotional fix. Who needs Jack Daniels at that moment?
Restaurants do program music based on the kind of the decade that the customers that they want are most familiar with or grew up with. And you see that in other types of stores as well. It's not that crazy sounding what you're describing. It creates that sense of comfort and familiarity, which is super important, particularly if you're in a shop. If your location is a place where people may come who didn't necessarily know you before and are experiencing it for the first time.
I'm just going right back to the CEO of our shops and this whole emotional connection thing that we're talking about. And I love this thinking and acting beyond, like your tire repair. Okay, what can we do to think and to act beyond? And then I started to think about this whole emotional connection and the things that aren't tangible, like promoting the people we hire. It's right on our website. It's maybe a little deeper than we typically see, a headshot and how many years or their name. And maybe we need to go on. Maybe we need to get the kind of picture of this person who works for us in an undercar moment, in an action setting, rather than just a plain old head and shoulders shot.
Undercar or something completely out of the shop.
Yeah.
If you've got a whole bunch of photos of your guys or people, when I say guys, I use it in the guideline sense. Your people, maybe in a Habitat for Humanity helping to build a house. You know what I'm talking about.
Okay, they volunteer for something in the community. Well, let's get a picture of them doing that. Not to your point, I guess, with their, Pico stethoscope on. But the whole safety, the listening, the satisfaction that we deliver, and those pictures or those moments or those smells or those body positionings and the interaction with our entire staff, it goes to the culture and the values that we're trying to have. And think about just doing some huddles and talking neuromarketing to our people. Listen, we got to listen to this episode because there's gems to pull from this. And are we doing this to the highest level so that we can become the kind of place, the shop that people are going to go and tell stories about, as you said, Dr. Dave? Storytelling.
Can we make use of the data? If I put a smiley face and a frowny face on a speed limit sign with your speed, and if you're above it, it gets a frowny face, that people are more apt to follow the speed limit. That if they go past that sign and they're over it, they're more apt to slow down. Why, if I put a counter, like a timer counter on a red light, are people more prone to be patient for long red lights than they are if I don't? And how big of a mistake it is to put the counter on the green light, showing time till it's going to go amber. 5 seconds and I got about 300 feet. What am I going to do? Drop the hammer. You're going to make this light. But if I put the timer on the red light and I show like 30 seconds left, much more apt to be patient and wait for that. And people will have a better driving experience just because of that. Nothing's changed. The actual time you sit there, that's not changed. But that timer, that changes your perspective or reframes it a little bit.
Yeah, a nice collection of dirty words. Just spew if you didn't have the timer.
The thing you're both making me realize is that the shop owner is attending to the person as well as the person's car. And if you do the person part right, you're prepared to do what you need to do. But if you do the person part right, that's how you grow. To Matt's point, you don't need to become an expert in neuromarketing, but the takeaways are applicable.
Wow, what an incredible episode. I had no idea where we could go with this, Matt, but you and Dr. David just brought it home.
You do. They're called rabbit holes. That's where Matt goes.
But I was so interested when you brought this to me as I did my research and figuring that Dr. David would be such a perfect anchor for this. So thank you so much, President of the Weiman Consulting and Leadership Group out in Philadelphia, PA. And, of course, Scott Manna's biographer, Matt Fanslow from Diagnosing the Aftermarket A to Z podcast.
He can pop a wheelie on a unicycle.
That is amazing.
I love that. It was just a brilliant discussion. Again, I think this is one of those listen over a couple of times or get to the website, look at the show notes page, get some of the talking points listed. Take this to your people. Take this to your business. Be a bakery. Bring the smells and the looks and the feel and the I can't wait to eat this and gain a pound. Thanks for being here, everyone.
Thanks for having me. Great to meet you, Matt.
Thank you. Great to meet you, sir.
Thanks for being on board to listen and learn from the premier automotive aftermarket podcast. Until next time.